It's that time again, another reading wrap-up, where I break down everything I read in April. This month was a trip, and not always in a fun way. We're talking survival horror that makes Lord of the Flies look like a summer camp, a devastating sibling drama, a dragon-filled romantasy phenomenon, and one of Stephen King's most infamous out-of-print novels. Let's start with Fantasticland, a book that asks, what if Lord of the Flies took place in an amusement park and everything went completely off the rails? The premise is simple, but horrifying. A massive hurricane hits Florida, leaving a Disney-esque theme park completely cut off from the outside world. The employees left behind with enough supplies to last weeks are expected to sit tight and wait for rescue. Instead, things go full Mad Max in a matter of days. Told in like a faux documentary format, the novel pieces together interviews with survivors, and they paint a brutal picture of how things fell apart. Alliances form, and before long, people are less worried about food shortages and more worried about who's hunting them for sport. The book is bleak. The slow, creeping descent into madness feels disturbingly plausible, and that makes it all the more unsettling. Now, is it a perfect book? Not quite. Some of the voices in the oral history style feel too similar, and a few characters come off as caricatures rather than real people. But the sheer brutality of it, the way it makes you want to look away but keeps pulling you back in, that's horror done right. Especially those damn warthogs. I hated those two. Now, if you're into survival horror, unreliable narrators, and the kind of book that makes you question whether we as a species deserve nice things, Fantasticland is worth checking out. Let's talk about the most emotionally devastating book I read this month. Actually, maybe in like forever. We're talking about Brother by Ania Ahlborn. This is horror, but not the supernatural kind. It's about a teenage boy named Michael growing up in a Texas Chainsaw Massacre style family in the backwoods of West Virginia. His family, they kidnap and kill women. And Michael? He's the one who doesn't want to be part of it. This book is all about the weight of family, the suffocating pull of loyalty, and what it takes to break free of a cycle of violence. But let's be clear, this is dark. There are no easy outs, no moments where you'd think, maybe this will all work out. It's disturbing, heartbreaking, and honestly one of the most gripping books I've read in a long time. Ahlborn's writing is razor sharp. She makes you care about Michael even as you know things aren't going to end well for him. And the slow unraveling of secrets, they're absolutely brutal. By the time the book hits its final act, you're equal parts horrified and emotionally wrecked. Now, would I recommend this book to everyone? Absolutely not. This is heavy horror, psychological, disturbing, and emotionally gutting. But if you can handle bleak family horror with zero mercy, Brother it's unforgettable. Alright, let's talk about Fourth Wing, a book that has taken over BookTok, BookTube, and what feels like every bookstore display on the planet. And after reading it, I have some questions. Mainly, why? This book follows Violet Sorrengail, a young woman forced to attend an elite war college where she must train to become a dragon rider, or die trying. Along the way, she faces brutal trials, a conveniently villainized childhood friend, and of course the brooding bad boy, Xaden Ryerson, who definitely wants to kill her. Until he doesn't. Now, I get it. Fantasy romance is having a moment, and there's nothing wrong with a good trope-filled romp. But Fourth Wing doesn't just rely on cliches. It drowns in them. We've got the not-like-other-girls heroine who is somehow weak and powerful at the same time, the tragic backstory love interest whose entire personality is smoldering glares, and plot twists so predictable they might as well come with flashing neon lights. And the writing? Let's just say it's downright awful. From the action to the romance, which is just cheaply veiled scene from the hub, inconsistent character motivations, and jarring tonal shifts, 1 minute Violet is barely surviving her training due to a chronic illness that makes her bones prone to breaking, and the next she's leaping into battle like she's been mainlining dragon steroids. Then there's the romance. Look, I have nothing against a well-done enemies to lovers arc, but Fourth Wing makes it feel more like a mild workplace irritation to lovers. The tension is forced, The chemistry is more tell than show, and when the book finally leans into its spicy moments, let's just say the dialogue did not do it any favors. So am I saying Fourth Wing is the worst book ever? No, but it's pretty damn close. I do think his popularity says more about book talk than the book's actual quality. If you want a well-written, accessible fantasy with dragons and romance, there are so many better options out there. Oh, and my wife wants to review this dumpster fire with me because while I found this novel to be poorly written drivel, she and her friends love it. I cannot wait. And finally, we need to talk about Rage, one of the most infamous books Stephen King ever wrote, and for good reason. Originally published under his Richard Bachman pseudonym, Rage is about a high school student named Charlie Decker who walks into class, pew-pews his teachers, and takes his classmates hostage. What follows is a tense psychological standoff as Charlie slowly unravels his past traumas, turning the situation into a disturbing group therapy session. The book is uncomfortable. King himself had it pulled from print after multiple schools were linked to students who had copies. And honestly, I get why. It doesn't glorify violence, but it does put you inside the mind of a teenager on the edge. And that's a dangerous place to be. So, does it hold up? Yes and no. The writing is pretty good. This is early Hungry King, and the tension is relentless. You can see where he is experimenting with different styles here. Not all of which work. But reading it in today's world, it's tough. The psychological breakdowns, the group dynamics, it's all fascinating, but it's hard to separate it from real-life events. Would I recommend it? Probably not to everybody. If you're a King completionist, it's an interesting read, but it's not a book that can, or really should, exist without its real-world context. King actually wrote a really touching nonfiction essay called Guns after the Sandy Hook massacre in 2012. In it, he elaborates on why he decided to pull Rage from shelves and publication. Guns is a quick, interesting read, and I recommend everyone check it out. April's reading list was a ride. From amusement park anarchy to Appalachian nightmares, from poorly written spice, peddled to young adults to an unsettling glimpse into teenage rage. If I had to pick a standout as book of the month, and I kind of feel gross saying this, Brother was probably the most interesting and impactful. That said, I only recommend it to hardcore horror fans. Now it's your turn. Have you read any of these? What did you think? And what have you been reading lately? Drop your thoughts in the comments. If you enjoyed this wrap up, give it a thumbs up. Share with someone looking for a new read, and definitely subscribe, because every subscriber inches me one step closer to taking over the galaxies. Until next time, take care, keep reading, and I'll see you in the next one.